Good morning. Welcome to Books at the Bottom of the Stairs. My name's Lorene. In the background, you might hear a sort of like boop, 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 boop noise kind of going on. It's raining. We have a hole in the eaves trough and it's coming down onto the downspout, and it just makes this ongoing noise. One day we'll correct it. I have 3 books to you for today that I'm a little confused about each one of them. So I'll start with the easiest one. 1 Year in Coal Harbour by Polly Horvath, middle grade reader. I was very keen to read this. It's the second one following Everything on a Waffle that she published, that I spoke about a little while ago, and I really enjoyed Everything on a Waffle. This takes place after the main protagonist, Primrose. Primrose's parents have been, in the previous book, lost at sea, found at sea, and Primrose had spent time with foster parents, Bert and Eliza, and then when her parents came back, she returned to them because that was like, it wasn't a bad situation. And so now we're a little bit further on and things have returned to normal, as it were. But Bert and, oh my goodness, what is his? Yeah, Bert and Evie, sorry. Their dog has died, and Primrose, Bert, and Evie were quite attached to this dog. So between the dog dying and Primrose going back to school, she discovers that she just doesn't have any friends, and she's very lonely. Everybody around her seems to be lonely or sad for one reason or another. So the story doesn't seem to be that compelling. I'm kind of disappointed. I'd say this was my least favorite Polly Horvath book, and she's a go-to author all the time. Primrose recognizes that a lady called Miss Bowser, who runs the Everything on a Waffle restaurant from the previous book, and her Uncle Jack seem to have some sort of little friction going on that may or may not be romantic, and so she tries to facilitate this, and as an 11-year-old she's not very effective, but it's certainly comical. Then a new foster child comes into Bert and Evie's home named Ked, and Primrose, I don't know how much they hit it off so much as Primrose decides that they've hit it off. But Ked has had a bit of a rough go of it, and so he's very cautious about engaging, because as a foster kid, he never knows when a parent will take him out of the situation, and or he will be shifted to a new foster home. So he's not very deeply engaged in anything. There are other things that are happening. A logging company is coming in and possibly taking over a strip of land that would decimate the area, the mountain woodlands. There's a patch of money that's come to the town that has been everybody thinks that this donation of money can be used to better the town, but the person donating the money actually has a pretty harebrained scheme as to what to do with it, and so all these things start to interconnect. That's okay. It wasn't an amazing plot. I can't say I wasn't really rolling along with it, and I think partly because Primrose does a lot of thinking, and I don't know how to explain it. She's very thoughtful, but it feels to me like she's thoughtful in an older person's head. It's not that what she was thinking is wrong or that they aren't really observant. It's just I'm just not sure that a kid would consistently be that observant. She thinks that she's got an inkling as to how the adults are thinking. And how the world works. So she's got a worldview that seems to make sense. And as the reader, it does make sense, but again, it just doesn't quite feel young enough. I certainly wouldn't have had some of those insights when I was 11 years old. And because as an 11-year-old, I think you're starting to encounter them. I don't think they're fully formed yet. And so I think that might be the piece that was kind of bothering me, was that they were fully formed conclusions, I guess, as opposed to questions. And yeah, I mean, I really like Polly Horvath's philosophy about life and people and kindness and community and so forth. I didn't have any problem with what was being thought about. I just wasn't convinced it was an 11-year-old that was doing the thinking. So as much as I love Polly Horvath, I'm not going to give this top grades. Except it made me think. I feel like I should go back and pull out the pieces that were really thoughtful, and then there'd be a really good adult book in here. How to think like a calm, sane adult in a world full of goobers. Okay, another book that I had mentioned before. I did not love Ramona, the character, when I was younger, and just seemed to avoid her, Beverly Cleary. And it seemed like there was always Ramona books in the libraries, because now that I look at it, it's not just Ramona. She also wrote for Muggy, The Mouse and the Motorcycle, Henry Huggins, and Emily's Runaway Imagination. So there are quite a number of books. Oh gosh, there's more than 20 books that Beverly Cleary wrote. And I think I avoided them all. I don't know what it was about Ramona that just really... Well, no, I do know what it was about Ramona. Ramona is this kid who's like energetic, full of life, really wants to get into it, and doesn't really hold back her, what shall I say? She lets her passions lead the way. And so there's not a lot of thinking time, completely the opposite to the previous character. There's not a lot of thinking time between the thought and the action, which gets her into heaps of trouble. Now, in this book, this is, I'm not even sure that I would recommend this as a middle grade book. This would certainly be for the younger spectrum, the younger side of the group. The protagonist in this book is about 6 years old, and her sister is in grade 6, so around 12, I guess. And there's not, you know what? I didn't finish it because Ramona kept getting into trouble with the adults around her because she doesn't have a good grip on the messaging from the adults. The adults don't 100% take her seriously, but she misses all kinds of cues. And I think that was me. And I think one of the reasons I didn't love Ramona when I was younger is that having a character who also wasn't getting the cues right just really enforced, you know, how much trouble I was in. How, like, if she can't get it, how am I supposed to get it? And it would be just simple things, like if you're sitting at a dinner table with a bunch of adults and you've overheard your parents saying something about one of the other adults, that not a good idea to repeat it. But both Ramona and I would, you know, do exactly that and then get into trouble for it and think, but I was only being honest. Don't you tell me to be honest? Don't tell lies. Like, it was this confusion about one lesson that came in conflict with societal norms. And Ramona, by the time I was in about page 30 or 40 from this, I was so tense and stressed and feeling all the feels of from when I was that kid that just adults didn't get them. I was trying so hard. Why couldn't I get the benefit of the doubt? Why was I always in trouble? And it's like, I don't know how many times I got sent to the coat closet and thought, honestly, I have no idea why I'm here today. It's just, and that's Ramona. So I think it just felt maybe a little too biographical. But yeah, a lot of people really enjoy it. And I think it's probably because they understood the things that were going on around them. So a much more important book and a much more important topic is Genderqueer, a memoir by Maia Kobabe. Maia Kobabe was born with the appearance of a female, and over time, sort of, well, this graphic novel, so I should start at the beginning. It's a graphic novel it's quite nicely illustrated all the way through. Like the lines and the colors they're calm, even though the person, like this is actually a very traumatic moment for this particular character, and that you don't get this hysterical drawing. You don't get this is a really positive moment for this character. So we do see some changes in the color palette. We do see some changes in the energy of the characters, but overall, it's a really non-confrontational style of drawing, and we're able to stick along with the main character even through really tough times. So this is a really strong drawing. This person's thoughts are just getting more and more snarled, and to the point where like it's really difficult to even read what the thoughts are. And as the reader, like it's easy to just say, oh, I'm not going to read that, that's too hard. But if you were like a compassionate person, you would actually turn the book and try and see so it takes work for people to be compassionate for Maia. It's not that she isn't surrounded, there's the other part of the book. Maia really is confused about her identity, not as a female, not as a male, not as a trans person, but just sort of absolutely, it's not even gender fluid, it's more like genderless in a way, but that's not entirely true either. So this individual has got a really snarled up set of observations they have to make about themselves, and really struggling to communicate that. And in the early days, when this person was a teenager, there was not any kind of language around that. It was you were gay or you were heterosexual, and so this person's internal identity is growing as the vocabulary around them is growing, and as the conversations evolve and so on. So is their ability to internalize what their thinking is. So it's historically, it's kind of running parallel to what's happening in the greater society. No, you cannot say that if these words had never been brought forward, this person would have settled back into being a female. That would not be a valid thing to say. One of the questions I did have along the journey, though, was that puberty can be such a minefield. And I think for women, or let me just speak from my own uterus's point of view, menstruation was not fun. And I didn't want to be doing it. And if I could have given away my boobs and my periods, yeah, I would have been first in line. So one of my questions for this author, which we didn't really explore, was how much of her confusion about her identity was connected to just god-awful periods. Now, I'm saying god-awful. Mine were not god-awful. I just intensely hated them. So they could be completely benign, and I still would have completely hated them. So I have no idea what her stress level was around that once a month, but it sure can change your feelings about your own body if you're not having does anybody have a good experience when they have their periods? I don't know. I do remember some people saying, oh, I don't even really notice. And I'm thinking, really? So anyhow, I wondered whether there was some sort of event that happened in her puberty that made her really dislike the reproductive part of her body. Is there a connection between your reproductive processes and your identities, as where on female to male to all of the groups in between? I don't know. And this wasn't covered in the book. And having read a few books on this topic and so forth, it's a piece that I haven't seen discussed. And I kind of wish it would be, because as Maia, she's Maia in the book as well, as Maia is coming along and encountering things like the willingness to come out and proclaim their pronouns, there are other pronouns that exist between the ones that we use in English. They are ones from other languages that are more just generally neutral. And I think it's air, no. I'm going to say it wrong. Then they start with E, and I think it was maybe air, but yeah. So that's where Maia settled. But unfortunately, it's too remote. How many? Yeah, like I just read the book and I can't even keep it in my head. That's just a question of effort on my part. But the further it gets from the language that is your common language, I guess, the harder it's going to be for your support group to normalize it, I guess. That's where I'm going. And in a way, the whole discussion around pronouns just seems so detail-oriented compared to the significant struggles that this person's mental world was going through. This person is not suffering from mental health. She's struggling with identity, and so many of us do, just totally despite what, how we appear or how we identify ourselves gender-wise. I mean, so at one point I planned to have a career. At another point I wanted to be a full-time mom. At another time I found that really restrictive and I almost had a mental breakdown over it because I'd lost 20 years to being a mom. And did I say single mom? Maybe I said single mom. I mean a mom at home. And then I thought, well, I really wasted my career years. Well, that was in my 40s and perimenopause. Then there's menopause where you just kind of come into it and you go, oh, well, I really don't give a shit anymore. So like your identity grows and morphs according to your environment and who's in your home and how many kids you have or don't have, or, what's happening with your parents. Your identity is somewhat driven by your circumstances. But then there's the core part of you, the part that always likes flowers, the part of you that loves sparkly glasses, or the part of you that just really always wants to be walking in nature. And then there's other people who just want to like get me to a bar, like I love that hard metal. Those are the parts of us that are us. And I think that in this book, Maia struggled with finding out who Maia was. Like, is that a terrible thing? I'm just confused. I'm so confused that so much of her life was spent worrying about dating and sex and intercourse or not intercourse, but not about things like, I'd love to have a dog, or I'm a real dog person. I don't know, am I simplifying things? I just feel like on the one hand, I don't get it, and on the other hand, I'm oversimplifying, and on the other hand, I think this is so deep, I wish there was something that I could be reading that was as accessible as this, but that opened up these doors of not knowing. Then when I speak to some other people who are going through this journey, I feel they're not entirely sure either. And it's a pretty deep psychological piece. And so while I was reading this, whenever Maia got into, there's a really great drawing in here where the thoughts are just, oh my goodness, the drawing is really so snarled up. And one of the things that Maia had that was really lucky for them was a really supportive family and a super supportive sister. And I think that certainly helps, that if you have got people around you who can help, pass you the popcorn while you're watching the movies, even though that person is completely snarled up in their thoughts. Here we go. That's that bottom picture. That's sort of how this person is thinking a lot of the time. If you've got a supportive family that, can be kind to you while you're going through this, that can make a big difference because they love you even though, in spite of that. I think I recommend this book. I'm not sure if I give it so here's where I run into another thought confusion is, do I give this a 5 out of 5 because, I give this a 5 out of 5 because I love the illustrations. I think that the chronology of this book is very good, bringing her from young ages to writing the age of writing this book. That's really solid. I think that the pieces that they're exploring are really solid and can really help open the doors for those of us who are not experiencing what Maia's experiencing. Where I run into a little bit of trouble is I'm not sure when and where Maia resolved things. So that picture that I was showing, and by the end of the book, I'm not 100% sure that Maia's settled. I'm not 100% sure that they've made some decisions. In a way, I feel like this person has not been able to make a commitment to what they're feeling. Does that make sense? Like, I guess sometimes when you're in relationships and they're a bit tentative, you're still kind of figuring out, okay, like, is this friend material? And at some point, subconsciously or consciously, you make a decision, we're friends. And I remember, back when I was first dating Steve, there was a moment where I had to think, like, am I going to get into this relationship or aren't I? So you have to make a decision and commit to things. And I wonder if Maia isn't a little commitment averse. Maybe by choosing one thing, it precludes a lot of other things. And that's where maybe maturity or life experience would be the better informant, because what's true in your 20s is not necessarily true in your 40s. So, yeah, I really liked this book, but it just left me with a whole lot of questions. And that's okay. Yeah, so like now I know if I bump into another book recommendation from someone, I'm going to look a little more carefully and just see, is this just the surface? This book isn't just the surface. Does another book go into the questions that I'm asking? And is that going to help open doors for me as well? Yeah, so that's it. Lots of confused thoughts in all of my readings this week. Oh, I know. One of the reasons I haven't been reading as much in the last month, although I think I read a fair bit, but they were a little bit shorter of books. One of the reasons I haven't been reading as much as socks. I think I showed you before. These are my socks for my sister in Vancouver. She chose the wool. I think we discussed how she chose brown. We won't comment. And then I chose these socks, and oh yeah, I did talk about this color. It's like no one in the right mind wears this color, but my daughter said she really, really wanted that, and so she's welcome to those. But then I kept going, and I made myself a pair of blue socks, and these whipped up. I don't know why, they just whipped up. I think that was while watching The Vicar of Dibley, which, if you can get that, that's a real funny story. And now I'm starting a pair for Steve, just the first set. And yeah, it's been a sock crazy. So that does affect some of my reading. That's it for me. I hope all your reading dreams and adventures continue to come true, and I will see you next week. Bye-bye.